Okay, hello. Welcome to the Boy Girl Mom and Dad, or today, just Dad, podcast. My name is Nick, and this is my lovely wife. Just kidding, she's not here. Uh, and we make up the Boy Girl Mom and Dad podcast.
Boy, girl, mom and dad here for the good times and the bad. From gender norms and stereotypes to making sure that the butts are wet. Boy, girl, mom and dad want grown-up time, you're going mad. It's a trip, but we'll guide you through with tips and tricks for boys and girls too.
You just get me this week. If you're excited about that, great. If you're not, and you love the wisdom that comes from Lauren, which we all do, I'm sorry, you still get me this week. We're a little bit out of cycle this week. Lauren is currently at Disneyland with our twins, and I'm so excited that she got to go. We originally were going to record a podcast episode this week today, and we're behind schedule, so we were going to post it tomorrow, which is way quicker than our normal schedule. But you know how it is as a parent. It gets crazy, things get in the way, and taking care of your babies and your kids takes priority. But as I stated, Lauren's at Disneyland. She had an opportunity to go for less than $1 million, which for those of you who follow tickets is an impressive price. So she's there with them. I'm very excited for her. And frankly, I'm incredibly proud that she decided to push her schedule for the day that's already very compressed and busy and push something like a podcast recording that I know eats away at her if we don't have it done on time. I'm just incredibly proud and impressed that she has decided to put her kids first yet again and take them on an amazing journey today. So why do you have me and why do you have such an aggressive podcast title? So you have me because she's busy and we decided to not record a podcast episode today. But hey, surprise, babe. We are recording an episode today. It's just not going to be anywhere near the mental load that you already carry. And I'm handling the whole thing. Minus, I need you to post a little bit. But hey, that's just because I don't want to post on your account. Don't worry. I'll help you get them ready. So topic today. Today's topic is from a article title, an article that I was reading called Mom Rage is a Dad Problem. I'll say it again. Mom Rage is a Dad Problem. So is this an aggressive title? It is. Do I think that all moms have rage? No. I have an aggressive title because I think there's a call to action in this article and 4 or 5 others that I've read about similar topics that I'm going to try and dive into today that fall on the father. Am I saying it's the father's fault that some moms can get upset? Not necessarily. Am I saying that, a mom who is angry and expressing her anger to her husband or her partner? Am I saying her actions are absolved in those moments because it's the father who's caused her to feel this way? No. But what I am saying is that we're a team. And I think it's healthy for us as dads to start to dive into, hey, I'm hearing frustration from my wife and my partner. Why? And is there a way that I can influence it in a more positive way in the future? Can I help or participate in a different way so that she doesn't enter into feelings of anger that can manifest in rage? So no, this is not in any way, shape, or form a crucifixion of moms who get angry, nor is it me bashing on dads, but I do want us to meet in the middle here. And I can recognize that moms can get understandably frustrated when dads or partners who are also dads are simply not carrying the weight that we all expect them to carry. So this will be a shorter episode. We're going to skip things we normally do, like the tiffs and the cleanup of the previous episodes. But hey, I'm here and let's talk. And if you think, hey, I'd rather have Lauren on, just skip this episode. Thanks so much for listening anyway. So again, highlighting the importances of understanding the challenges that we face as parents and how it can manifest in anger from either partner, typically from mom. So what does mom rage mean? There's 3 or 4 articles I read about this, and I'm going to post them in the notes. But without discussing each one in detail, the summarized version here is Mom rage can be defined as the intense frustration experienced and conveyed by mothers due to primarily the unequal burden of household and childcare responsibilities. So, dads, let's set aside the defensiveness of my wife's yelling at me or my wife is expressing disappointment, discontent, or anger. Let's set that aside. We don't ever want to focus on blame. And let's focus on what does this definition mean and how can we influence it to not happen, right? So how can we step in a way that our wife is expecting us to, whether she's communicating it to us well or not? So unequal burden of household and childcare responsibilities. We hear things like the mental load, how, this task or this thing is a mom job and this task and this thing is a dad job. You've heard us on this podcast talk about the mental load and tools that you can use to try and be equal partners as best as possible. Like the card strategy game that we talked about, where there's a ownership of specific tasks, parenting and family-wise, to help distribute those tasks and define explicitly ownership for them. In the episode called The Productivity Problem, we dive into that. So please go listen. But the point here is, one of the ways that we can identify what's causing frustration from a specific partner is, do they feel like they're carrying more of the load than they should be? And this is separate from, hey, I feel like as a dad, I'm doing enough, right? If you feel like you're doing enough, that's okay. You can take some pride in that. That means that you're thinking about what you're doing and you care about what you're doing to contribute to the family. That's great. Sometimes that's just a start. Sometimes that's a great place for you to actually be prideful in. But if your partner is actually feeling, hey, I'm taking on more of this load than I think I should be, or it's affecting me in a different way than I think it should be, those feelings are real. Whether you as the other partner believe there's an equal distribution of not or not, something is weighing your partner down, and it is your responsibility to step in and help. So that's one definition of mom rage. It's one way to unpack it. I think there's definitely other things that can contribute to any partner, moms or dads, being upset and expressing that anger or that discontentment in some way to their partner. So again, not specific to moms, but I think this manifests a lot in moms because there is a lack of participation problem with a lot of dads in today's society. So one of the article authors, named Sarah Peterson, she lays out some insights into the root causes of mom rage that also include societal expectations and the concept of dad privilege. So we've also talked about this a little bit before, but when we think of, for example, like taking care of the kids or cleaning the kitchen or working in a professional environment, all of these things have a traditionally different and sex assigned context that currently in society we really don't hold to anymore, right? So like, for example, it just isn't true that it's mom work to take care of the kids solely, right? Independent of the other partner. It just isn't true that it's dad work to go work and bring in income for the family, right? It's true that those things need to get done. And however it's distributed across the partners, it doesn't mean that one is solely responsible due to their sex or their gender, and the other is responsible for something else due to their sex or gender, right? So these are the societal expectations that I think Sarah Peterson is attempting to describe, and many other writers and authors have described. Another example is like dads, when we hear things like, oh, wow, like it's so great that you're able to help today. Or like you're watching your kids while your partner is out and you tell your buddies or something, or they notice you're watching your kids and they say something like, oh, it's great that you're babysitting. You don't babysit your own kids. You're not helping your partner as though it is always her or their responsibility and you're stepping in to alleviate a little bit of pressure. It is your joint responsibility with your partner to take care of your children, to help with all the tasks that have to do with raising a family and taking care of your relationship and your kids. It is not just one person's job. So I think there are ways to receive those comments and kind of not be defensive about them, but just correct that perception a little bit. For example, if somebody tells me like, "Oh, it's so great that you're babysitting while Lauren's out," I'll usually say something like, "Oh yeah, our babysitter or our nanny was not available and I'm home. So I was excited to hang with them," you know? Um, or just like, "Yeah, it's not really babysitting, like they're mine, but these are things we were doing," like kind of softly deflect it. The point is not to shame the person who's saying this to you, because the societal expectations kind of just seep in. I don't think that most people are trying to be, uh, malicious when they're using those terms with you. But I think there is these like preconceived notions and expectations that are ingrained in their brain, where they see dad's taking the kids to the park, he's helping, he's babysitting. Dad's watching the kids while mom's going to do something else, she's a bad mom, or she's not spending enough time with her kids, and dad's giving her a break. Those things I think we can softly fight against, as we try to be equal partners. So this notion of dad privilege specifically refers to societal norms that often exempt fathers from domestic responsibilities, contributing to mom's feelings or the partner's feelings of overwhelm and resentment. So another example, when Lauren and I are figuring out how to do childcare when we each individually have things we want to do, that fall outside of the workday, where we have a pretty good distribution of who's taking care of the kids and a good understanding of expectations there. In the past, before we kind of understood how we can push back against these societal norms, it was difficult for one of us to bring up, "Hey, I have a book club I want to go to. Hey, I have a movie I want to go see," because there was some expectation that one of the partners was always watching the kids as a default. And neither one of us tried to set that up. That was an expectation that one of us had based on these societal norms, as we were figuring out to become how to become great parents that like we're still trying to be. And one of the things that I'm proud that we can do today is, getting childcare is not any easier than it was back then when we were first figuring out how to distribute the load of watching the kids. But I think we've got a pretty great pattern now of, "Hey, there's this thing I want to go to, are you around? Like, are you cool watching the kids for this time?" Right. And the goal here is not, "Hey, I'm pushing the kids off on you." It's, "Hey, I'm expressing a need and a want, something I want to go do. I know that you and I, as my partner, share the burden of, watching our kids. I don't see anything in the calendar. I'm assuming you can step in." Right. And the person who's receiving that request can receive it like, "Oh, they're pushing the childcare off on me," or they can receive it specifically as a request and just hear like, "Okay, cool. My partner wants to go do something. Let me check my calendar." Right. And if you don't have anything going on, you don't have anything you need to go do, regardless of whether you're the mom or the dad, you should watch the kids. Right. I mean, if you didn't have anything to do and the other partner was around anyway, you should still be helping to watch the kids. So this is nothing new. It's not you stepping into being a babysitter, as we discussed earlier, right? It's you supporting your partner and going out to do something. In that same conversation, if both of us have a night where we both want to do something, it's important enough for both of us to spend the money for childcare, for a nanny or a babysitter, do the work to find it, and then still spend the money to go out and do either our thing together or our independent things on the same evening. That's okay too. But the point here is, it's not babysitting if a parent is watching your kids. And it's okay to bring up, "Hey, I, as a mom or a dad, want to do this thing." Right. So I think I partially got away from my point there, but I think it's important to consider how we distribute the work of watching our kids. Right. So should we be upset as fathers when we see, I really don't like to use the word rage, but like that our partner is upset? I don't think that we should react defensively there. I think, in fact, what we need to do is be a calming presence. the goal here is not just to take responsibility for everything and blame for everything because our partner is upset. The goal is to realize our partner is upset and they need support, right? And there's support in that moment where there's probably chaos around you and them, and you need to step in and help, right? And not help because it's their responsibility and you're there as an ancillary helper. Help because you both share the burden of caring for the kids and caring for the family. Let's just step away from defensiveness is what I'm trying to say. And like, if mom is expressing anger later, when we're not angry, we're not yelling at each other, we're not expressing issues, let's have a calm conversation about, hey, I think I was frustrated because this was my expectation and it wasn't met. Or I felt this way because this thing happened. And then have a conversation about how in the future, maybe we can fix that, right? It doesn't always mean it's the dad's fault. It doesn't always mean it's the mom's fault. And blame isn't something we should focus on. But the point is, we want to try and avoid those frustrations, right? So we can focus on taking care of the kids and enjoying our days with them. Okay, next section. Why moms dismiss dad's help. So this is not directly related and solely related to the whole mom rage topic. But I think moms being upset can manifest as a result of them not accepting help from their other partner. And again, not blaming moms for this. It's completely understandable. Let me dive into what it means. So according to the moms.com article that, again, I'll reference in the show notes, mothers dismiss dad's help with parenting tasks primarily because it's too difficult from their perception to teach dad how to do it. And it's also frustrating that they even have to teach dad how to do it. That is objectively understandable. The same thing happens anywhere else in life outside of parenting. If you feel like the burden of teaching somebody to fish is way greater than just going to fish yourself, you're probably not going to want to teach them. And I mean, fathers, I know it's easy for us to lean on that analogy and think like, hey, just teach me and then it's going to be fine and I'll do it forever perfectly after that. Well, that's not true. Like typically moms have spent hours preparing and researching and figuring out the way that they want to prepare, that they want to parent and ways that they want you guys to show up as parents and do a specific thing together. And whether or not they communicate those things well to you and set those expectations with you or enter into a conversation with you about how you'd prefer to parent, they have done a ton of legwork up front. So teaching us or feeling like they have to teach us how to do something to help with kids that are already ours, when their expectation is similar to that of themselves, that the father or the other parent or the other partner is actually also researching and trying to prepare, how we should parent in a specific situation. If they feel like they have to do that all over again when it's already hard in the first place, that's an understandable reason for them to be upset. So that's one way that dismissing dad's help can manifest. So one of the things that these articles talk about is how we examine various factors contributing to this behavior of dismissing dad's help, such as societal norms, which we just touched on a little bit, maternal instinct, perfectionism, and communication issues. So I'm going to spend a minute on each of those. So we talked a little bit about societal norms. I'll set that one aside. The headline there is like, each parent is collectively responsible 100% for parenting your kids. How you distribute specific tasks in different areas of that workload is separate, but it is not mom's job to take care of the kids and parent. It is the parents' job, both partners' jobs, to collectively do that together. So find ways to step into that together. That's my societal norms pushback. So maternal instinct is, I think, a little bit a result of the preparation that moms are really good at and the research they typically do to try and be the best version of a mom and a parent that they can be. And I'm not saying that dads don't do this, but I think our inclination is not to do this proactively. It's to do it reactively. This goes into the third point as well of perfectionism. Like, moms do understand, and I am trying to come to understand, that what they would categorize as mistakes or missteps in parenting can have massive impacts on your child, and sometimes massive negative impacts. So should we strive to be perfectionists? No. Uh, that's going to cause way too much stress and pressure on any of us, especially moms and dads. But should we try and improve continuously? Yes. So I think there's this air of an instinct and preparation that contributes to perfectionism in moms that really has a virtuous intent. It's not, I'm a mom and I want to be the most perfect mom for me. It's, as far as I understand it, and this is conjecture because I'm obviously not a mom, I'm a dad. As much as I understand it, it's, I want to do the best for my kid so that my kid or kids can be the best humans that they're able to be. And I don't want to get in the way of that. So I can objectively understand that as a dad from a different perspective. Because I also want my kids to do well. I also want my kids to be happy. I also want my kids to be healthy. I also want my kids to be safe. If I could choose to be a perfect parent, I would. And I think that this air of perfectionism as being a negative thing, I think we have to understand we'll never be perfect parents, but the reason it feels like your partner and the mom might be trying to be a perfectionist or being a perfectionist is because they want the same things you do for your kids. So try and do things like helping with research, like don't be reactive in your research, for example. And I've been guilty of this many times. Like, I'm curious. So when Lauren has a position about something, she's researched, she has an understanding, like, this is how I would prefer us to parent. In many cases, she's communicated these to me, right? Sometimes I don't have a great memory. I'm not the one that's done the work to research these positions. I've just heard her talk about it. I will ask a question that she's told me before, or I will start to reactively look up articles for something we're seeing in our kids to figure out what to do next. And that's not bad, but I can understand how it's frustrating for the perfectionist mind of my wife and my partner in parenting, when she's already done that work and feels like it's unnecessary and a waste of time. And it shows that I'm not participating at the same, in the same way and with the same amount of effort, proactive effort that she is. So I do understand that. I think that it's probably good for moms to understand, like, a lot of us dads, it's not that we don't like to prepare. It's that being reactive is sometimes the way that we try and solve problems. So it's not, hopefully you don't look at us as just procrastinators or people that don't care enough to look until something's on fire. But a lot of things are on fire as parents, right? There's a lot of things going on around us. And it may just be, I've chosen to, do the cards that I own, right? And do the piece of parenting that has been carved out for me based on our mutual understanding. And I haven't thought, oh, I need to also research this thing. Moms are good at that. I feel like I'm not good at that. Okay, so how can we help to combat the perfectionism? I don't know that it needs to be solved. I think the thing is, understand that where what we would call perfectionism is coming from, it's coming from a place of wanting your kids to do well. And that's the same baseline that I assume you have as a dad. So try and be more proactive to research stages in your kid's life that are coming up. Try and enter into conversations with a curious heart and mind to discover what your wife has already, like what the mom has already started to research and consider, so that you can share in the mental burden that she is probably feeling like she's carrying most or all of. And I don't mean let's rehash conversations we've already had, but I do mean, like, hey, I'm noticing our kids are probably going to, like, climb out of their beds and need toddler beds soon. Like, this is what I think we can do based on what I've read and seen. Like, what have you seen, or what are your thoughts? That's a different position than, like, hey, have you researched when to switch over to toddler beds. One of those is like assuming that your wife and the mom has done all the work. And the other one is stepping in with hopefully an attempt at equal participation and proactive research to align as partners. There's a difference. The last of the four factors that were laid out that could contribute to dismissing dad's help is communication issues. And I think like my take here is that it can be connected to the proactive research and consideration of what's next for your kids that moms innately do and are pretty good at. I think it does and can feel like a burden to communicate what you have already had conversations in your own head about and what you've already done research, proactive research about to your partner, the father, who you are kind of expecting to be your equal partner, right? So like if you're having to train somebody, that suggests that they're not putting in as much effort in as you are. And if you're feeling weighed down and burdened by being a parent, which is easy to do because it's very difficult, it's easy to understand why it can be frustrating to have to train somebody and why it can be more attractive to dismiss that extra burden of training, of teaching your husband how to fish. So I think something that I would say as a piece of advice to us dads is listen. I think for me, I know that Lauren is always going to proactively research and consider what's next faster and far further out in the future than I am. Always. It happens with our vacations. It happens with birthdays and anniversaries. There's a joke that among our friends that, she sends out Christmas cards more than a year in advance, which obviously isn't true, but like that's how far out she considers. And I think that's a beautiful quality, but I think I probably have an opportunity to listen to when she's considering those things and not dismiss them as, oh, it's really early. I don't need to think about that yet. So for example, like Lauren brought up to me very early on, hey, we're going to have to buy the conversion kits for our kids' beds because they're climbing out soon. We're going to have to buy them like now. And it took me a while to pick that task up, not because I wasn't busy and was trying to be lethargic and lazy about it, but I prioritized other things, including like taking care of the kids and the rest of the family responsibilities we have over that task. But I think what I could have done better is listen and hear like, okay, there's a piece of her mental burden that's associated with the cribs, ordering the right pieces, recognizing we need them sooner rather than later. She's probably done some research around this. I know she had, in fact, she was talking to me about it. And it's not that I was dismissing those conversations, but I don't think I was listening to the sense of urgency that was in her voice and intent as well as I could have been. So I don't think my point is order them immediately when she says to order them. I think my point is if I was really listening, I probably could have heard, hey, this thing is closer than I am considering it to be. And it's taking up space in my wife's mind that is causing her some stress. How can I take it and run with it and do it and own it? And that one was an easy one for me to take and do and own. But I know that it took up more mental space for her and was more of a burden for her than it could have been because she had to mention it to me multiple times. She was the one researching when the right phase was to do it, how to do it. She even got to how to order it, even though I already knew how to do it because I wasn't communicating that I was going to order it for her or for us. And she just didn't know, but knew that we needed it. So I think I could have stepped in and recognized like, okay, here's a thing that's coming. My wife's identified it more than me or earlier than me. Great. I'm going to take it and go do it. And then come back and say, hey, heard you about the cribs. Based on what I've seen, I agree. We probably should be ready for whenever this is going to happen. I've ordered them. They're on the way. So even without the ordering part, I think like coming back and acknowledging, hey, I heard you say this thing. Based on what I've seen, here's the research I've done. Like show your work a little bit and show the effort of being that equal partner. I think that would help to alleviate some of that burden. There's another piece here where like, if we're out of diapers, for example, this doesn't directly apply to us because we had a recurring diaper subscription, but it's an objective piece that I could see happening. Like if we're out of diapers and I see it, I could just go order them. Or I could say to Lauren, hey, we're out of diapers. One of those has an assumption that she's owning it and going to order it. And the other one is proactively solving the problem. And it's not that it's not worth talking about or not worth calling out. It's that, it doesn't hurt us to have extra diapers. If I went and ordered them and then said like, hey babe, I recognized we were like almost out or out. I just ordered some more. I just went and picked some up. Like you're solving immediately. And in my opinion, that can't really be mistaked as, you're letting her carry that mental burden. And again, if she's already ordered them or they're on a recurring subscription you don't know about, fine. You just have a little bit of extra diapers now and you are still trying to share that burden. So that's another way that you can help. But I think listening to when some of these milestones and considerations that are that could be weighing down your partner and the mom, listen to when they are being mentioned. And whether they require a conversation with her or not, try and step in and own those things, or step in and research proactively those things so that you're able to step into a conversation with your wife from an educated perspective and a prepared perspective, as opposed to a helper who's trying to step in. Okay, we're going to pause on the podcast and I'm going to do a commercial. And I'm not going to do a commercial for any of the brands that we typically do commercials for. And I don't have to clear my commercial because this is my episode. So I'm going to highlight an amazing author, Lauren Molinas. This is her book, It Takes Two. She wrote it over the last few years. It's a beautiful book about twins. It is not only for twins. I think it's a cool, unique book for twins, but it's not only for twins. It's beautifully illustrated by Seeley Span. Look at those gorgeous photos. So cute. Lauren worked really, really hard on this. And to be quite honest with you, the reason we wrote that, Lauren wrote it. I didn't do it. The reason Lauren wrote it was not for a massive revenue stream for us. And we don't have one of those. She wrote it because she thought that there was a gap, and I agree with her, of great twin books that are available at all. And what's really cool about this one is it's kind of a forever book for your twins as kids. Like it shows that twins have superpowers. They are connected to each other in unique ways. Sometimes they even look like each other, but they're not the same. It highlights the individuality and connectedness of twins. There's excellent representations of diversity in here, not only of how twins can look, but also what they may be interested in, how they may act. And it's very cute, illustrated well, and rhymes and everything. I mean, I'm just super proud of her. So I'll drop the link of where to get it. It's $15, I think $14.95. So we tried to keep the price low so it's accessible. It's on Amazon primarily, coming to hopefully more retailers soon. But yeah, I'm really proud to be married to an author, and I'm excited for more people to get and read this book. Section 3 is focusing on parenting perspectives, specifically mom versus dad. And I know that's very general, but I kind of want to touch on it as it relates to mom rage typically being a dad problem, because there are different perspectives we have as parents, as moms and dads, and they do influence whether any partner feels anger, rage, or, any type of disappointment or anything towards the other parent who may not be equally participating. So a lot of these articles dive into the differences between the parenting perspectives, and they anchor on societal expectations and gender norms that are influencing the parenting roles and responsibilities that lead to distinct approaches to parenting. I think something good to recognize here is there are benefits and challenges of embracing diverse parenting styles, and embracing an atmosphere of mutual respect and understanding between both parents. So as I described earlier, like zooming into how we figure out childcare between us early on in parenting, um, I'm pretty confident that we did not set up a system in our family of mom always watches the kids by default at night and dad gets to do whatever he needs to do. Mom shouldn't ask if she wants to go do something independent of us. You know, I don't think we set that up. I'm pretty confident in that. But Lauren did feel that. And I don't blame her one bit for it. I completely understand it because I think, with society and people saying things like, oh, dads can maybe babysit, or, saying things to moms that are out like, oh, who's watching the kids? Mom's night out, um, while those things sound ridiculous in a vacuum, they're frequently said to mothers specifically. And I can understand how they can build this sense of mom guilt and kind of societal oppression, if you will, where like, it may be really hard for mom to say to dad, hey, there's this thing I want to go to, even though that sounds like a simple request from dad's perspective. So that is completely and specifically representative of how societal pressures can manifest even in homes that aren't attempting to perpetuate them. So I think the pain part of this sentence, the challenge, if you will, of embracing diverse parenting styles and kind of fighting against those societal norms, is related to that. If one or both of us is feeling something against our partner, let's not assume that it is their fault and they're doing something to you intentionally. For example, and Lauren didn't do this to me, but I'm just saying, like, Lauren could have, given the example about watching kids at night, she could have been very upset with me about that situation. And she wasn't. She didn't understand why there was a difference between how much I was doing and how much she was doing, and could have brought it up in an angry way to me, but basically started to tell me like, hey, I'm feeling like I'm not able to go do things. Like, it's really hard watching the kids at night. Like, all these different things were coming up that I didn't understand were burdensome to her. And I frankly really thought I was being a good equal partner and providing a healthy space of her to be able to go do whatever she wanted at night when I can watch the kids. Right. But I wasn't. And I'm not taking blame for that, but I think like her stepping into, hey, I think we need to support each other better in this way, as opposed to, hey, you, Nick, are making me feel like I can't go do things. I think that's super healthy. And I'm happy that she did it that way. And I think that's a great example of how we can step into, addressing the societal pressure and challenges we're feeling as parents, without assigning blame to our other partner. Like, let's step into, hey, I feel really guilty when I'm going out and you're watching the kids at home. Like, that's an okay thing to say. Or, hey, like when you say I'll babysit, that really makes me feel this way, or from the dad's perspective. And I stepped into this a little bit, like I was a little bit more aggressive than I needed to be to try and make Lauren go do things. And it's because I recognized similar things that she was internally, like, you can go do things and I have this, like, I've got this. I can watch the kids. I'm already planning to watch the kids every night after work unless we have something going on. Like, I was very, I think, animated in a way that I didn't need to be to try and impress on her, like, I'm not the version, or I'm trying to not be the version of lazy babysitter dad that society thinks is acceptable. I stepped into that pretty aggressively with her to try and get her to go do things and have this individual piece of her life where she felt like her kids would be safe and supported with me. And I don't think she didn't feel like I could do it, but I think she needed to be, she needed it to be proven to her that I was willing to. And I didn't think that proof was necessary. So all to say, that is an example in my mind of us fighting against that societal pressure, and fighting through the challenge of embracing being equal partners together without assigning blame. The mutual respect part is specifically important as well. And I like the way it was said in one of these articles. I'll read it again. The benefits and challenges of embracing diverse parenting styles includes the importance of mutual respect and understanding between parents. So mutual respect means like we don't want to try and like figure out if our partners are equal partners and are intending to be great parents alongside us. In my opinion, this is Life by Nick. We should start from a position of believing that they are for us and for the kids and for the family. I think that there's a trap that we can fall into rather, assuming that, hey, this negative thing that I'm feeling, she's doing that to me or he's doing that to me. Because it's so real, the problem that we're feeling internally to us, that I think it's not really easy to fathom that the other partner doesn't recognize or feel it. This has happened in our relationship as parents where like one of us has communicated to the other. I'll be specific. Like Lauren has communicated to me like, hey, I'm really frustrated with this thing. Like, why are you not doing this? Why are you not helping me with this? And aside from like how she communicated that to me, that wasn't a problem in my mind. In my mind, I was equally participating in the things she was frustrated about. And it wasn't a real problem to me. It was, in fact, a non-existent problem to me. And I don't think that makes me inherently negligent or not considerate, but it does show that there's a difference in our expectations and understanding around whether there's a problem about a specific thing or not. So like the respect there is she knows that I want to be an equal parent. And she knows that I'm trying to be an equal parent no matter how many times I'm failing at that. So for her to bring up to me, hey, this thing is frustrating to me, like you're not doing this, comes from a place of respect because she knows that I want to be that equal parent. So in my opinion, like that kind of unmet expectations and frustration is like reasonable, separate from how violently we communicate it. Like it's reasonable for her to feel that way because there's a disconnect in her mind between my partner's a good partner, which I know she believes, and he's maybe not doing the thing that I expect a good partner to be doing. So again, if we assume dad wants to be a good dad and he wants to be an equal partner, or mom wants to be a good mom and wants to be an equal partner, if we start from that baseline, the way in which we address problems we're experiencing or unmet expectations or pressures or mental load or any of these things that are really difficult, the way that we approach them with our partner is different. So that's the encouragement I would say to dads and also to both parents is don't assume that your wife's just always mad at you. Don't assume that your partner's just always mad at you. Don't assume that they're unreasonable. And don't assume that they understand how hard you're trying. Like you should receive their requests in a humble way with the assumption that they want you and expect you to be an equal partner. And that's a beautiful thing. Next section is navigating parenthood together. From a practical perspective, Fair Play, the game with the cards that I referenced earlier, is a great starting point. But that's the card game that attempts to organize and explicitly communicate all that's necessary to take care of the family, inclusive of childcare and parenting, and who owns which thing. And again, it's not so that we can call out when somebody is not owning their card or so that we can assign blame to people. It's so that we can collectively understand, both mom and dad, collectively understand how much is associated with parenting and taking care of the family and get our minds around how to equitably distribute that load. Regardless of whether you use that specific tool of Fair Play or not, I think having the baseline of mutual respect and assuming that you and your partner both want to be equal parents and both want to have an equal piece of that load of being a parent, that's a great first start. But just try. Like, it's okay to say like, hey babe, I feel like you're doing a lot more than I am. Like, but I don't really know how to help. Like, can we talk about it? That's the same problem, and communication around solving the mental load problem, that Fair Play is trying to fix. And I don't think a lot of dads, specifically, to call us out, want to have that conversation and are comfortable having that conversation. And I think my ask to moms is like, try and recognize when your husband and partner who's a dad is trying. And it's not that trying is more valuable than the results you are expecting. It's that trying means that there's an opportunity to communicate your expectations, to align on how you guys want to parent, to step into something that you may not have done before, like the Fair Play system or whatever system may work for you. Hear when your partner says, I want to be an equal partner, and try and help them get there. And not because we expect you to carry the load of that, but I would consider that a worthy investment. Fair Play is an example of the successful co-parenting practice that encourages listening and reflection on your parenting dynamics and the distribution of the load of being a parent and running a family. Other examples include like honest communication. So it sounds so simple to say that, but there are times with our kids where, for whatever reason, whoever is taking care of them at that moment, it's a lot. Like, this is a common problem for a lot of people. And I think the expectation that society has on us is that we should just like not crack as parents. We can do it. We can handle it. Our parents did it. Our grandparents did it. Everything's going to be fine. But something that Lauren and I have started to do that I really do love is we tell each other, regardless of what the other person is doing, when we're at or near a point of not being able to handle something. So like, this wasn't always true, but it has become true. Like me saying to Lauren, hey, like, I don't know what to do. I can't figure this out right now. This is really frustrating me. I need to step away for a second. Like, now, those kinds of statements to each other are accepted, and we typically step right in and try and basically be that like tap in replacement for the other parent. And it's not from a perspective of like, oh, mom can't handle it, dad's going to help, or dad can't handle it, mom's going to help. It's a recognition that it's difficult to be in a lot of situations that parenting and raising a family presents. And we shouldn't be expected to always just be able to handle it. And part of being a great partner is recognizing or listening to when your partner needs you and stepping in to be there. So be comfortable saying like, I really need your help here. And if you're on the receiving end of that request, expect of yourself that you're going to jump in because your partner is telling you they need you. And another more proactive way is like, let's try and notice when that's happening. So, we've got twins. Like, one of the things I'm trying to do now is, during the day, this is a specific example. During the day, when our nanny is not here, typically during the workday, Lauren is watching the kids, and that's a system that we have agreed upon. Not because she's the default parent, but because she has a more flexible work environment than I do. So part of that understanding is also I'm typically the ones putting them to bed. I'm trying to help feed them after business hours and take care of them after business hours. Usually at breakfast, I'm trying to do the same. So it is much more of an equal distribution attempt than it sounds like. But just zooming into the workday piece, she's typically watching the kids during work, and I work at home. So I'll come down between meetings, between my work that's going on in my office. I'll get more coffee, do whatever else I need to do. And if I have a few minutes and I'm down there and I'm recognizing both twins are asking them to do different things, or the twins are upset with her, or she's struggling with something that, whether it's from them or not, is just weighing her down, like, I will look for anything I can do, inclusive of grabbing the kids, to help. And it's not help because she can't handle it. It's help because I'm trying to always look for where I can be an equal partner. And again, not help because she's the default parent. I'm saying help because she's the active parent in that moment, right? If it's at night And like I previously described, I'm the one that's typically taking care of them and putting them to bed. If there's a moment where like I can't really handle that and something is really stressing me out in that moment, even though I'm the active parent in that moment, I want her to be able to see that or to be able to step in and help me when I'm asking her for help. So it's not a default parent conversation here. It's like, how do we look and at what's going on and proactively try and be equal parents? In conclusion, I think, mom rage is a hilarious title. I don't think that moms have rage. I don't think that this title or the article titles that aren't mine, by the way, are attempting to call out or make fun of moms. I think rather the meaning of this is, hey, let's not focus on how mom is expressing the anger and disappointment that she's feeling. Let's focus on why she's feeling it, or why the partner that's showing said anger, whether it's a mom or not, is feeling it. And let's try and step in and figure out how to resolve it. Regardless of your family situation, regardless of your work situation, there are always ways to show up as equal parents. And there are always ways to distribute the load of being parents and raising a family between both of you. Always. Okay, I think I'm going to finish by reading some funny quotes. Maybe they're not funny, but they're quotes. So from one of the articles called Mom Rage is a Dad Problem, which is where I got this title, here are a few notable quotes. Mom rage is the internal combustion of a mother's frustration at her partner's lack of participation in household and childcare responsibilities. So don't hear my partner's mad, dads. Try and hear, how can I better show up for her? Try and start there. Another quote from the same article: the balance of mental load in a household is often tipped heavily in the favor of mothers, and it's absolutely affecting the mother's health. That mental load is significant and real. It is. So, dads, let's stop thinking, hey, it's ridiculous that you feel like you're carrying all the mental load. I understand how it can be frustrating as a dad to hear the mental load conversation over and over and over again, especially if you're one of the great dads who is trying to be an equal partner. I can understand how it can feel invalidating of your efforts to try and be an equal partner as a father if you keep hearing the subject of mental load come up. I would encourage you that maybe it keeps coming up because you still have some work to do, or you and your partner still have some work collectively to do to get to a place where you feel like you're equal partners. But also, your partner telling you that they're feeling more of the mental load is not an invalidation of all of your virtuous attempts to be an equal parent. It's simply a recognition that there's more work to do. So there's more quotes from these other articles. Another one's called Why Mom Dismisses Dad's Help. Some moms don't want to give up control because they don't trust that dads will do the right thing the right way. I'll read that again. One of them is, some moms don't want to give up control because they don't trust that dads will do things the, quote, right way. I understand that. I have a bit of issue with the quote of right, because I think a lot of times, and this is from my perspective, moms, don't destroy me in the comments. I think the right way is typically defined in your mind and not often communicated to your husband and your partner, who's the father, and not often aligned with them. Doesn't mean it's wrong. It means that your version of right may not be well understood by your partner, who may be trying to help do things the right way. So agree on what that right way for your family is. And that's part of the clear expectations towards your partner who hopefully is trying to be an equal partner, around what you guys think is right. Ways you want to discipline, ways you want to feed your kids, when we have screens on or off, whether we have screens on or off. Like, moms, it's not fair for us to, moms, in my opinion, it's not fair to get mad at dad for having the TV on or feeding a specific thing in a way that you wouldn't expect, if you guys haven't agreed on a collective strategy as parents. That's not fair. But dads, try and figure out what's right. If you don't know, don't just go and ask and expect your wife to have the answer. Try and figure out what you want, do your own research, and then come back to your partner and say, hey, like, I've read that screen time before 6 maybe isn't good if we're putting them to bed at 7. Like, would you agree that 6 is a good cutoff? Like, start your conversation aligning expectations from a point of education. Another quote from that article is, many moms struggle to trust their partners will parent in a way that aligns with their own expectations. Same thing we just talked about. Moms, if you don't think your partner will parent the same way that you will, that is a signal that you guys need to get on the same page. And not because you're right and they're wrong, or because they're right and you're wrong. If you have discomfort there, it means you guys aren't aligned. Dads, if your partner, the mom, is expressing to you, hey, like, I don't know if you can do this right, don't get mad that they're telling you you're doing it wrong. Be curious, do some research, and come back to them to help start that alignment of expectations conversation. Other quotes from the third article, which is called Parenting as a Mom versus Parenting as a Dad, from zon.net. Mothers often prioritize nurturing and emotional support, while fathers may focus more on discipline and problem solving. This, I think, is described in the article as genetic and like natural predispositions coupled with societal expectations. So, setting aside the genetic piece, because I'm no scientist, I understand mothers providing nurturing and emotional support as a default. I understand fathers focusing on discipline and problem solving as a default traditionally, but I don't think that we always have to fall into these patterns. And I think that this is part of aligning with your partner. So this is part of the mental load. Like, figure out, where do you want dad to step in? Where do you want mom to step in? And I mean, figure out together where, for example, maybe dad's usually driving. Maybe mom's usually driving. Maybe dad's usually coupling them in the car seats. Maybe mom's usually doing that. Just align on where you are with specific situations. And that effort is not going to stop. Another quote from that article is, moms tend to be more hands-on and involved in the day-to-day care of the children, and dads may take on more of a supportive role. Dads, I really try to fight against this in my own life. And I really think that we should be fighting against it too. I think that we can't control the pressure that society puts on moms to be perfect and to be the primary caretakers, whether we agree with it or not, which we shouldn't. We can't control that societal pressure, but we can control how we show up for our partners. We can control how we show up for moms. What I've said many times in this podcast, this specific episode, is come up with your own perspective on how to do something and talk to your wife about it from a point of education. And then observe and watch. Like, if your partner, the mom, observe and watch. If your partner and mom is, you're noticing, always turning off the TVs at a specific time, figure out your own position there and come to her with a confirmation so that you guys are on the same page. Not, hey, what time do we turn off TVs? And also, like, use those observation skills everywhere. This article calls out moms tend to be more hands-on and involved in the day-to-day care of children, whether that's explicitly your system or not. Watch, right? See what they're doing. Don't ask dumb questions. And I don't mean dumb questions like little tiny questions. I mean, like, recognize that there's already a hefty mental load on your partner and try and be smart about, is this something I can figure out? Is this something I can research? Is this something that's already been dictated or told to me or written down somewhere by my partner? Or is this something we just haven't talked about yet? And also consider, is this the right time to talk about it? You know, when you're in the midst of feeding your kids, getting them dressed, getting them off to school, whatever else is going on, that may not be the right time to say like, hey babe, how come you never feed them strawberries? You know, also that question is not great, but not a good example, but you understand my point. Like, let's have these check-ins separately from the stress that sometimes is involved in parenting. So the last article is called Tension with Our Kids' Mom Deeply Affects Our Fathering. So I think to me this is super relevant, and it's not specific to the mom rage part of the title and what causes it, and how dads can influence it. It's more specific to how we communicate with each other as moms and dads, and what effects it may have on our kids. So hopefully you agree with me that there's a lot of virtue in attempting to be an equal carrier of the load of parenting and taking care of your family, because you care about your partner and because you care about your kids. Another thing to recognize here can be described well by the quotes from this Tension with Our Kids' Mom article. So here's one of them. Conflict between parents can lead to less involvement from fathers in their children's lives. Another one. The father-child relationship is affected by the quality of the relationship between the father and the child's mother. You carrying an equal load and communicating in a respectful way with virtuous intent with your partner has positive impacts on your children. So this isn't just a thing to do for you or a thing to do for your partner. This is something to do for your kids. So this article discusses how the relationship tension between parents can impact fathers' involvement in parenting and their relationship with their children. What does that mean? Dads, if we choose to see when our wife is stressed and possibly upset with us as a signal to back off, we are perpetuating the problem of them always doing everything and carrying the full mental load. And we are also showing our children that it is acceptable for only mom to do everything or primarily do everything. Don't do that. Now, the other side is really positive of this coin, right? If we choose to step in an attempt to be equal parents, in an attempt to carry the mental load equally, whether we're successful in that or not, doesn't matter as much as showing the intent. And I'm not saying we should aim to fail. I'm saying I hope that our children see both of us as parents who want to be parents and who are equally trying to be great parents. I don't want them to see Lauren as mom and dad as friend. I want them to see mom and dad as parents and friends. I don't want them to see dad as babysitter. I don't want them to see mom as disciplinarian. I don't want them to see dad as breadwinner. I don't want them to see mom as housewife, for all the negative connotations of that word. And I'm not saying being a wife at home is a bad thing. Just the societal expectations on that word, I think, are negative. I want them to see us as parents that are for them, excited that they're around, excited to help foster an environment where they can grow into being the best versions of themselves that they can. And that requires us to do work between ourselves as mother and father and help to set expectations, identify gaps in ourselves and our partner that we can hope to close, focus away from things like blame and towards things like improvement and consideration. I feel like this is a discombobulated episode, but I'm being raw with you guys, so hopefully it's partially helpful. Okay, that's most of what I've got to talk about. I'm going to link all of this. Hopefully, this is helpful. I think I'm realizing there's more episodes, hopefully more organized, that we can do around ways that we can step in to be equal parents and really, honestly, dads, like, step up a little bit as fathers, not just for the pride of it and not for the pride of it at all, but like, assume that you are an equal parent and step into what that means. Your partner deserves it, and your kids definitely deserve it. Thanks for listening. I am going to go edit this, hopefully in time for Lauren to see it completely finished. Thank you for giving me space to speak without her, because she's the prettier, more articulate, and more prepared version of me. And go buy her book. She worked hard on it. I appreciate all of you. I know we're all trying. If you're listening to this podcast, you at least care about being a great parent. And for that, I appreciate you. Bye. Have a great week.
Boy, girl, mom, and dad. Gotta wash those butts together. It's a trip, but we'll guide you through with tips and tricks for boys and girls too.